What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It's time to continue our 2023 schedule preview and projected records for the 2023 college football season. We continue them with the Northwestern Wildcats. Here was the schedule last year for this Northwestern team, coming off a very disastrous year in 2022. Not just talking about disappointment. Yes, they were a disappointment, but they were just a disaster overall in 2022, going 1-11 overall. Probably one of the most disappointing and one of the most disastrous teams from last year during the 2022 season. You look at who they played in the non-conference last year. They played Duke out of the ACC. They played Southern Illinois, then also Miami of Ohio. So they didn't really have too tough of a non-conference schedule. Of course, Duke ended up, being a surprise team after all. And then, of course, losing those to Southern Illinois and Miami really hurt them. So this is a team that probably could have possibly gone like maybe 3-9 perhaps. And, after that Nebraska win in week number 0, we thought this Northwestern team would be a really good contender in the Big Ten West, but, they didn't turn out to be as good as we kind of expect, them to be. And this is a team that, I at least had maybe winning 5 or 6 games last year. And, overall they just had a tough stretch there from Duke all the way to the end of the season. So very disappointing season last year for this Northwestern team, and a very disastrous season from last year in 2023. We don't know how good this team is heading into 2023. Let's now look at the schedule. Will it be a better record than it was last year for this Northwestern team, or will that disastrous continue heading into next year? Here's the schedule for them heading into 2023, and you look at who they'll play in the non-conference this season. They'll play UTEP here on September 9th, and they'll play Duke here once again, and this time it will be on the road. That will be a tricky road game there on September the 16th. The Duke team that returns a lot of production from that surprise team from last year. And then they'll play Howard here on October 7th. So once again, the non-conference schedule is kind of similar to last year. They do have to play Duke, though, which is going to make it a lot tougher there on the schedule. And you look at who they'll play outside of the Big Ten West. They'll play Rutgers there on the road to begin the season on September 2nd, so they'll have a Big Ten matchup to begin the season. And then they'll play Penn State here on September 30th. Tough draw there outside of the out of the Big Ten East. Of course, Penn State was one of the top 3 teams from last year in the Big Ten. And then you got, of course, Maryland here on October 28th. At least you get that one at home, and also Penn State at home. But overall, a pretty tough draw there. Maryland probably perhaps one of the 4th best teams in that Big Ten East. You never know, but, Rutgers, I really don't know how good they're going to be either, but that will be a road game. And that's a pretty tough road game to start out the year for this Northwestern team, a team that, went 1-11 last year, and they still have to play every single Big Ten West team on this schedule. So let's now go game by game now for this Northwestern team. So they'll kick off the season with the Rutgers here on September 2nd. This one will be on the road. Pretty interesting matchup here to start out week number 1 for Northwestern. It's a very winnable game for them, but Rutgers, obviously, they do have this one at home. And the Rutgers could be a team that, maybe surprises a little bit of people this year, but this will be a tough road game here for Northwestern to begin out the year. Then they'll play UTEP after that on September 9th. Then they'll play Duke here on the road. So, yeah, you had to play on the road at Duke. So, 2 road games here in the month of September to the Rutgers and Duke. Those are not easy games there. The Rutgers probably is going to be one of those easy road games perhaps for Northwestern, but Duke will be a tough one there on the road on September 16th. Then they'll play 3 straight home games here. They'll play Minnesota here at home on September 23rd. Then they'll play Penn State here on September 30th. Then they'll play Howard here on October 7th. So they'll get 2 home games in the month of September to end things out. And then, of course, they'll play Howard here at the beginning of October. They'll get a bye week before playing Nebraska on the road. That will be a pretty tricky road game there. Of course, Nebraska, didn't turn out to be as good as we kind of thought they were going to be. And Nebraska ended up being better than Northwestern than we did not expect them to be. Northwestern did defeat this Nebraska team last year in Ireland, so we kind of didn't expect, Nebraska to be better than them. Then they'll play Maryland after that on October the 28th. Then it's Iowa here on November 4th. Then they'll play Wisconsin on the road on November 11th, so a pretty tough place to play there. And then they'll play Purdue here November 18th. And then they'll play Illinois here to end things out on the road. So yeah, the schedule overall pretty tough. I think the only good thing about this schedule is you don't have to play back-to-back road games, against two tough teams, but they do have some tough road games here on the schedule. I think Duke is their toughest non-conference game here on the schedule. Then Nebraska, Wisconsin, Illinois, all on the road. At least they get Iowa and Penn State and Minnesota at home, so maybe they could probably surprise some people and maybe win those games, but no telling how good this Northwestern team is heading into 2023. Let's now get to the projected record for this Northwestern team. And here's the scale I use for my projections. If it's a 1% game, these are games where Northwestern has no chance of winning in. 20%, there'll be about a couple touchdowns of underdogs in the orange. In the yellow, there'll be heavy underdogs in, about 40% of a heavy underdog. 50-50 games, these will stay in the white. Games where they can go either way. 60% in the purple. These are games where Northwestern's going to be favored by about a touchdown. You probably won't see any of those purple games, though, on here. Same thing with the blue, but the blue games are about a couple touchdowns, like double digits, and then 90% games. These are the easy wins here for Northwestern. And like I said, you probably won't see any of those blue or purple games. So you probably won't see a lot of games on here that Northwestern is favored in, but we're going to start with the easy wins here. And I think you got two easy wins there on the schedule for Northwestern here. UTEP and Howard. However, I think could probably switch these games to blue. But, based off of, based off of these non-conference games, I got to put both games in the green just because Northwestern has home field advantage. I know Northwestern that wasn't that good last year. It should probably be in the blue or purple, but I'm still going to favor in these games by at least more than 3 touchdowns just because they're kind of like cupcake games. I think UTEP is kind of better, though, than Howard. And I think it wouldn't be really a big shocker if they did lose one of these non-conference games, but it would be a really big shock if they lost both of these games and, maybe lose once again, all their non-conference games from last year. So Northwestern, I think these are the only couple games that are easy wins here for Northwestern as of right now. And like I said, I don't have any blue or purple games, so let's go to the underdog games. And surprisingly, I don't have any red games, but let's start with the orange games where they're going to be about a couple touchdowns of underdogs. And I think you've got 4 of those on the schedule: Duke, Penn State, and then Wisconsin and Illinois, both on the road. I think these are all games where Northwestern's going to be about a couple touchdowns of underdogs. Duke obviously beat them last year. This was a very surprise team and a lot of production coming back for this team. Penn State, the 3rd best team in the East last year. I really don't see Northwestern having any shot in this game. If this was on the road for Northwestern, I would put it in the red. But with it being a home game for Northwestern, I'm going to put this one in the orange. And then Wisconsin and Illinois, based off of where these teams from where they were last year, they were pretty decent teams, but I'm going to put both of these in the orange. So I think Northwestern will be a couple touchdowns of underdogs in all 4 of these games. Now moving on to the yellow, these are games where Northwestern's going to be about a touchdown of underdogs. These are very winnable games, but maybe not quite enough, but that's almost the majority of their schedule. Minnesota, Nebraska, Maryland, Iowa, and Purdue. These are all games where they're going to be about a touchdown of an underdog, and it's really hard to tell of what Northwestern's going to look like heading into 2023. We don't know how good they're going to be. We don't know how good they're going to be on both sides of the ball. Minnesota, Nebraska, Maryland. Nebraska wasn't that good last year, but Minnesota, Maryland, Iowa, and Purdue were all decent teams last year. Of course, Purdue made it to the Big Ten title game, and Iowa, they struggled on offense last year, but they should be better with Cade McNamara coming in. We don't really know about Maryland yet, but they should be a decent team this year. And then you got Minnesota, that could be another decent team, and then you got Nebraska, that could be really good as well. So I think all these games right here in the yellow, I think you can put Northwestern as a heavy underdog, and that just leaves the Rutgers game here in the white. I think that's a 50-50 game there in the early part of the season in week number 1. It's really hard to tell what the Rutgers are going to look like too, but they do have the home field advantage in this game. And it's going to be really hard to tell what Northwestern is going to look like and how good they're going to be. So let's now get to the projected record here for this Northwestern team. So if you look at the schedule, and like I said, this is not my official prediction. This is simply a projection based on this schedule, and it's a pretty tough schedule here for this Northwestern team. If you look at the games that they're only favored in, a couple of those with UTEP and Howard, and then you count the underdog games in the yellow and orange, and then of course you got that 50 game with the Rutgers here. You get an overall projected record at 2-10 for this Northwestern team. Like I said, we don't know how good this team is going to be just based off the disastrous season they had from last year. And, of course, the disappointment from this Northwestern team. They could be another disappointment in 2023. It wouldn't really shock me if they were a disappointment once again in 2023, but it would really shock me if they did win more than 2 games, they did the year before. So, but right now, this is how the projection comes out to be, is 2-10 for Northwestern. Let me guys know what you think about this Northwestern team down in the comments below. What do you think their best case scenario is? What do you think their worst case scenario is as of right now for 2023? And stay tuned here for more sports content on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.